Hi, this is my second show of 2020. The first one was called Hindsight is So 2020. This is Monique Marvez. Hopefully you looked at the image on your screen or you heard my voice and you said, oh, Monique posted a new show. But maybe you found me out of the ether. Then let me explain who I am. I am Monique Marvez, comedian, writer, performer, air talent, podcaster, and virtual best friend. And that is actually probably the most important part of this introduction, virtual best friend, because this is the best time in my life. I am the happiest I've ever been by far, and I'm paying it forward. I want to give you cosmic hacks to get, as I say, night after night on stage, as happy as you can get as happy as you can, as fast as you can. So this show is called I Love It When a Plan Comes Together. And that is because a few years ago, I did a podcast called Life is Cumulative. And just like if you listen to box sets of artists that you love, whether it's the Rolling Stones or Eric Clapton, Crossroads, which I originally had on cassette, or Bruce Springsteen, which I originally had on vinyl, you can hear the growth of a song, of a sound, of a vibe, sometimes 5 or 6 songs back, or 2 or 3 albums back. When you hear a current song, you're like, well, this song is a lot like back in the day when Bruce sang, Mary Queen of Arkansas, it turned into this song. So Life is Cumulative was the lead up, the sketch study. Artists do little studies sometimes, and then they bring it out into the whole picture. This podcast is a result of really understanding that life is 100% cumulative. And if you remember nothing else from the show that you're going to hear, I want you to embrace the fact that nothing is wasted and nothing is useless. Every single thing that you made an effort to do, good, bad, or indifferent. Good and bad are actually more important than indifferent. Apathy is the flip side of love. It's not hate. Hate is still a proactive emotion. If you hate something, you're still very much engaged, especially if you're involved with a situation that's what I called an energy vampire. Hate can sometimes drain you faster and harder than true love. And love can be very draining. I let people know that love cannot inhabit a weak heart. Love is not for the faint. It's not for the weak. It's not for the timid. It involves enormous amounts of commitment and courage and faith, because ultimately you have to have faith that you will survive something extremely painful and difficult, which is the loss of love. And there's a whole lot of people that when they hear Shakespeare say better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, say, I don't know about that. But take it from me. Right now, as we're kicking off this second show, I love it when a plan comes together. I do know. I have loved and lost a lot of things and people. I lost furniture, money, hair, my mind, my father. I could go on. Really, the only 2 things I really miss are my dad and my hair. And my hair I was able to gain back with the help of vitamins and some Indian virgins that made some sacrifices. And my dad, I was able to bring back sort of once his physical presence was no longer felt, and that sorrow had to be dealt with, then the emotional and spiritual presence of his wisdom, of the indelible mark that he left on me, was able to be enjoyed again. In other words, I had to grieve the loss of him to then go back to the library of him, sort of the footage, if you will, in my mind of him. And I have, he was with me till I was 44. And if I replay the tapes as many times as I've replayed The Sopranos, Mad Men, The Princess Bride, and The Big Lebowski, I've got plenty of content to last me till the end of my days. So I digressed just a wee bit, but I'm doing it for a reason. I want you to think about all of these things in a fun way, in a circular way, in a doodling way, in a lighthearted way, not in a heavy way, not in a loss is permanent way, not in a life is a sum zero game and I did this wrong, so that's going to happen. Nothing went wrong. Nothing was wasted. Everything you chose to think about and put into action had a reason and a purpose and a motivation behind it. Everything, I believe, is an answer to a prayer. The key to life is to remember what it is you prayed, what it is you wanted to have happen. And I know that. I know that on a very personal level. So first of all, I want to talk about number one. The most important thing to get what you want is to focus. And when I say focus, I don't mean, and everybody has their process. Some people write it over and over. Some people have vision boards. Some people meditate on it. Some people do mirror work. They look in the mirror and say like, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has their process. I've done a variety of things. What seems to work is that when things come into focus, like a camera picture, when I can zero in, when there's not a lot of things in the shot, when I can say, I want to, just call the shot, just like Babe Ruth. I want to finish a 90-minute one-woman show with audio-visual cues. Okay? That is a goal. Now, it may not run 90 minutes. It may run 70. Depends on the venue. Depends where it's going to go. But there is a 90-minute show in my very near future that has a beginning, a middle, and end, and is embedded with a lifetime of possibilities of becoming sort of the cornerstone of a performance empire, if you will. Because at the end of the day, I am a writer-performer. I am not, a literary person. Yes, I'm going to write a book. I've been writing a book for a very long time, and it will be completed. But I'm not an author as much as I am a writer-performer. I write things down, and then I say them to you, or I perform them on stage. And to that end, I've focused on what it is I want to have happen. And you will see that this podcast will embrace what I'm going to call sort of a lit cast, which is a story within a story. We're going to go on the journey of the stories that are going to go into the one-woman show in the book together here at this place, at this podcast nexus where you and I interact. So I'm asking you to focus on your heart's desire. And it can't be 58 things, because all of us know that when you put 58 things in a picture, everybody's looking around, and it's no longer a picture, it's a still life. It's whatever it is you want to call it. But the Mona Lisa is not in a group shot. She's not in the graduating class of Genoa. She's her. I think she's from Genoa, but that's not the point. The Mona Lisa is one thing in the middle of a frame. So I'm asking you, what is your Mona Lisa? What is your passion? What is your heart's desire? It can be small. It can be, I really need to lose 10 pounds and get into shape, where I feel stronger and I can do whatever it is. One thing, 10 pounds. Focus. Take a picture in your mind of what that will look like, what you will look and feel like 10 pounds thinner. Maybe it's you're sitting on some cash, somebody passed and you want to buy a house. Picture the kind of house you want to live in. Whatever it is, put one thing in the frame. Maybe you're trying to get pregnant. Maybe there's a position at work you really want and you know exactly where that office is. Put it in the frame. Picture the door of the office you want to sit in. Picture the infant. One thing, focus, focus, focus. Because I have found that when I declare and decide and focus on that one thing, it happens. Now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, full disclosure, cards up on the table, I don't do it as often as I should. And maybe it is because it's somewhat of a magic trick if you have a powerful mind. And maybe even on some level, all of us, including myself, we slow our roll a little bit by scattering our momentum and our energy. Maybe we do that, all of us, to varying degrees. But I promise you, in 2020, we're only 9 weeks into the year. I've done it a lot less, and the results have been nothing short of a magic trick. For many years, I've been saying that I would love to do something with HBO, that HBO is the gold standard. Sopranos, end of story, The Wire. So to me, yes, am I grateful for every other avenue? Am I grateful for Netflix, for Showtime, for KFI, for KFMB, for every other platform who has housed and nurtured and paid me over these years, over this 20, at this point, I quit my day job. This summer will be 27 years since I quit my day job. And I've had many allies and many venues and many platforms who have sustained, supported, and cared for me. But I'd be lying if I told you that in my heart of hearts, I didn't want to see my name next to the letters HBO. P.S. 2 weeks ago, I filmed a special for HBO Max. It's a new division. It'll be launching in May. And I believe that good things will come after that special airs. And I'll keep you posted on that. It's exciting to have your life come together in that picture frame, in the frame. I very much invite you to think of your goals, not as this intangible, faraway thing that's sort of nebulous, like a wish, like a dream, like a maybe, like it would be sure nice if that happened. I'm asking you, this is my process. I'm asking you to develop a process where focus becomes part of your process, real focus. What I do is that when I journal, and I've shared my journal with you many times, this is what it looks like, I write the words, I declare and decide, or the reverse, I decide and declare. What happens is I get an idea of where it is I want to go. I call that shot, I decide and declare. My next stop isn't just a 1 hour special. Would I love a 1 hour special? Absolutely. It's been a long time since I did Not Skinny, Not Blonde. Would I love a 1 hour special on HBO? Absolutely. But life is cumulative. And 27 years into the game, I believe that I have an enormous amount of wisdom and vision and humor and hindsight and cosmic hacks that would be housed in this 1 hour, which would actually be a portal, a gateway, a passage to a bigger picture life. Because that's the world we live in now. No one can stop you. No one can stop your creativity. If you are a creative person, there is a place for everything you do. In fact, the kids, the younger people in comedy in the green room at Hermosa Beach Comedy and Magic Club were talking to me about this new platform called TikTok, which is a little bit like Vine. I don't know anything about it other than you post videos and they don't go away like Vine, and they have some sort of algorithm where you can get lots and lots of views if the content is there. I'm going to investigate TikTok. I'm still mastering this. But the point is, in my frame, I have one woman show. That's what I'm focusing on. Whether I put segments of it as I do it, here, there, everywhere, TikTok, I'm not going to get hijacked trying to do something different right now. I'm going to get those words, those 90 minutes of words with the appropriate audio visual cues in place before I figure out where to put them. Do you understand what I'm saying? That there's a difference between wanting someone and wanting something and wanting your own future and taking the steps. Now, when I said wanting someone, In my case, it's always me. It's always the best me that I want. Because when I focus on my best me doing my best work, the people that can facilitate that personally, professionally, spiritually, financially, always manifest. If there's somebody you feel you need to meet in order to get that thing in your frame, continue to focus on the thing in the frame without worry, without compunction, without doubt. I want to say something that's going to sound very old school and kind of bizarre, but I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I don't believe that the devil is a red scaly thing with horns and a tail. It's not. The devil is doubt. The devil is despair. The devil is shadow. The devil is depression. The devil is anything that drives a wedge between you and your heart's desire. It's anything that keeps you from believing that what you want and what you are willing to focus on and hold a vision of are possible. Does it make it easier to do the thing? No. But doing the thing fearlessly and without doubt will most certainly keep it in focus. It may still be a yeoman's task. It may still be arduous, but it will keep it in focus. It will keep you from being distracted. It will keep you from losing your way. In order to focus, you must keep doubt, despair, depression absolutely out of the frame. There is no room in your frame of focus for doubt, despair, depression, and anything that keeps you from believing that you can have whatever it is that you put in that frame. You have to believe it and then put it in that frame. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's going to come quickly. But believe it, because you wouldn't want it if it wasn't capable of happening, if you weren't able to have it. I do not believe that the universe, God, whatever word you want to use, is cruel and would make you want something that you couldn't ever achieve in this lifetime. I don't believe that for one moment. And I'm very excited about my one-woman show and sharing pieces of it with you. So please think about, in this first segment, what you want to focus on. Picture a frame in your mind's eye and stick it there. Put your Mona Lisa in your gold-gilded frame. That is the first segment of the show that I am very much enjoying. I love it when a plan comes together. This is the Monique Marvez Show.
Thank you for tuning in. Give a big thumbs up to support the podcast. And now let's get back to the show.
Hi, this is the Monique Marvez Show, the second one of the year. The first one being Hindsight is So 2020. If you didn't listen to it or watch it, please go back and do so now. I think you're going to like it. This one is called I Love It When a Plan Comes Together, because I very much do love it when a plan comes together. And the beginning of 2020 has been the happiest, most exciting, most fruitful time in my life. And that's not an accident. It's because I've mastered a few magic tricks, if you will, that I kind of was okay at. But you don't get good at things, you don't master things without putting the full weight of your attention and desire and focus upon them. So in the first segment, I talked a lot about focus, about framing one thing that is very important to you. But along with focus, because it is a three-prong attack, along with focus, focus alone will not get you what you want. It'll get you a lot closer. What I want you to think about now, and this is the other three sort of segments. Think of a table with 4 legs. Focus. The second leg is forgiveness. In order to focus on what you want, you have to declare emotional bankruptcy. You have to forgive your emotional, spiritual, sort of what I call time debts. You, over time, will accumulate debts, obligations, all sorts of things that sort of drag on the line. Now, when I say I love it when a plan comes together, when something is my heart's desire, I genuinely want it. I think about it. I'm hoping that it will come to pass. I'm praying that it will come to pass. Then it generally does. Now, I'm not going to mention any names for the other party's sake, not for my own. But many years ago, there was a woman who wanted to work with me, manage me, be involved. We had very different styles, and life pulled us in opposite directions. And for a multitude of reasons, none of which are important at this moment, I think both of us felt hurt that the relationship went the way that it went. Not just that we didn't end up working together, but in the hows and whys of why we didn't end up working together. And I don't want to say that there was, as the kids say, shade thrown, but there was shade thrown. She threw some shade, I threw some shade. Things weren't growing under that shade. And actually, if something was growing, it was, fungus and mushroom, which is what grows in shade, not good things. That being said, I've reached a point in my life where I don't want anything like that in my life. I just don't. And I'd been thinking about her. I'd just been thinking about her because the happier I get, the more I rise, the better I feel about the world. Then you notice, again, they come into focus, the things that are out of place. When everything's out of place, when everything's out of kilter, everything kind of looks the same. A mess, a jumble, a hodgepodge. My storage unit at the beginning of 2012. But as you get things in order, as you manage to put every single thing in your mind, in your home, I love Marie Kondo, and we're going to talk about that at another time. But when you start to get things in order, then when things are out of place, they're really much more visual. And as my mind is in order, as I'm focusing, as my home is in order, then the things that are sort of askew really stand out. Now, this situation with this woman happened over 20 years ago, and it's been an issue. I'm sure it's happened with her and with me. Our names have cropped up in each other's lives. And always, I'm sure on my end, with that weird little tug of, that didn't go the way I wanted. And we all have those within our professional circle, our personal circle. Maybe you had words with a friend and you're not even quite sure what the words were. You just know you're not close anymore. Or there's some weirdness, or you just fell away. I don't even know how these things happen, but they do. Interestingly enough, as I went to film this very important thing, she was there with another client. We were backstage in a very small, tight area in darkness behind a curtain. And she smiled and said, maybe it wasn't the warmest smile, but she did the right thing. She smiled and said, "It's nice to see you." Now, it was a small space. I was in my head because I was about to perform. But when she said that, I felt an opportunity for a rightness, for something very much to not only be put back, but to be put better. And I actually stepped up. I got up out of my seat, stepped to her, and gave her a hug and said, "After all of these years, it's so lovely to see you." And I meant it with every fiber in my being. Well, that was the first step. And it was kind of a good step because it turned out that we were on the same flight home, and it was a small plane. And we were both in first class. Believe me, I didn't pay for that. Somebody else did. But we were 2 seats away from each other. And while we were waiting in the airport, as she was walking towards the seating area, and San Antonio is a rather small airport, I stood up. I kind of juked her. And I smiled. And I said, "I just want you to know that whatever happened all those years ago, if I did something that made you feel unappreciated or slighted or anything, I genuinely apologize. You're a good person. You've worked very hard for your clients." I very much laid it out. Cards on the table, face up. And then I hugged her again. We boarded the flight. We chatted. We both went into our own worlds. And when the flight landed, I offered, because I was already reaching up, to grab her bag and put it down in the aisle. And she smiled and almost involuntarily said, "No, it's okay, sweetheart. I can get it." And I can tell you, a lot of people have called me sweetheart. And a lot of people have meant it. But having somebody who I've had that feeling, that friction, that something ain't right here, say it. It was one of the sweetest sweethearts I'd ever heard. It felt very nice. I'm asking you to think about people that you have issues with and think about how much better you're going to feel when you let it go. And maybe you're not in a position to juke them when they're walking towards you in the aisle. Or maybe you're not in a small space behind a curtain where you have no option. I got lucky. I know that. I wanted it to happen, and there was no way it wasn't going to happen under these conditions. But maybe you don't have that same opportunity. Maybe your person is far away. Maybe it's an old boss. Maybe it's somebody who's passed. Maybe it's somebody that you really just don't have the inclination. I'm not even going to say courage. The inclination to pick up a phone or type out an email. That's okay. Forgive them. Find a way in your heart to let it go. I know how hard that can be, but I'm also going to tell you that I've done it many, many, many times. And it is the strongest power source. When you forgive people, it's like being at a Tesla supercharger. Nothing will give you momentum and move you forward towards the things you're focusing on, like forgiving someone. Now, I understand having a relationship go sideways is not the same as maybe you've been genuinely mistreated, physically mistreated, sexually mistreated. I get it. And I'm not asking you to make it right and be this person's bestie and hang out and buy him a chocolate malted. For your very own sake, find a way to forgive. But more importantly than forgiving other people, charity very much does begin at home. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the time you wasted on a bad boyfriend or girlfriend. Forgive yourself for the money you spent on stuff that didn't pan out or bring you the happiness that you thought it was going to bring you. Forgive yourself for the time you said that thing that you wished a million times over you could take back. I promise you, you're not the only one. Forgive yourself all day, every day for being human. We are human. We do things sometimes that take us sideways or downwards or what we believe to be straight to hell. It isn't. I promise you it is not. It is just a moment in time. Forgive yourself first. The best that you can all day, every day. You're going to trip up. You're going to make mistakes. I promise you nothing is wasted. It's all in the story. Tell yourself a story about that experience. A better story. Yeah, I was with this person X amount of time, but look what I learned. Or I got my children out of it. Or I moved to this city for him and then we broke up, but I love this city. I promise you, in every event, I mean, look, nobody has a more grisly, and maybe I'm wrong, of course, let me not speak in superlatives. Tyler Perry has a very grisly childhood. It involves physical abuse, constant molestation, attacks on his body, spirit, mind, soul, all day, every day. And P.S., he's Tyler Perry. Do I need to tell you what that involves? Like, he's Tyler Perry. And you can fill in the blank with, Oprah. I mean, Jack Nicholson grew up thinking that his older sister was his older sister when in fact she was his mother. And he was raised by his grandmother. And he talks about that and how absolutely destabilizing it was. In fact, Google Liev Schreiber of Ray Donovan and read his childhood. He was basically homeless. He was like his mother was squatting in abandoned buildings in New York. And he's, and these are people that we all know in pop culture. For every celebrity that has a story, even my friend Tiffany Haddish, terrible story. For every person that has this story that's a celebrity, there's people that are not celebrities. There's people, run-of-the-mill people. Maybe your mailman, your Amazon delivery. Whoever it is, I promise you, no one gets it to adulthood scot-free. Everybody, we have, dings and dents and, things happen, and we respond to those things. In fact, in my one-woman show, I have a whole chapter that was in the book, which has been reduced down, called the 7-Up Theory, where I say that everything we do from the age of 7 and up is to heal or protect a wound that we incurred from the age of 7 and down. Now, I just picked that because I like the number 7, and the 7-Up Theory sounds pretty good. However, I've since found out that 7 is a biblical number, that 7 is what the French consider the age of reason, when children become aware of things around them. So I want to repeat that if one leg of the table that's going to hold up your dreams is focus, then the second leg is absolutely positively forgiveness. And I promise you, there's things to forgive. In the third segment of this show, the third 20-minute segment, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I sort of CSI'd on myself and realized that they were patterns and things that I kept doing over and over. That first I had to forgive myself and sit and look at them without judgment and shame. Sometimes it's hard to even look at what it is you're doing because you're embarrassed by it and you don't want to look at it, and you keep putting it off and saying, I don't want to look at that. But if you just turn and look at it straight on and go, that thing, don't like it, not going to do it anymore, declared and decided. I'm going to forgive myself because it happened, whether it's an addiction or a failed relationship, whatever it is. I'm going to declare and decide that doesn't work for me. I forgive myself for doing it in the past, not bringing it into my future, and there you go. I'm moving on from it. Now, the second 2 table legs, and they'll go very fast, because once you focus on what you want, you forgive yourself from anything that kept you from having it. Then the other 2 fall right into place, and they're clarity and commitment. The more you focus, the more you forgive, the clearer that thing in the frame is going to become. The clearer the path to it is going to become. The clearer your life is going to become. The neater your brain is going to become. You're not going to have boxes of emotion open and half emptied all willy-nilly in your head. You're going to have order. You're going to be able to put things in a place where you like the story, and the story has a happy ending. I absolutely love watching a movie called The Exotic Marigold Hotel. It's about a bunch of older folks that end up in a hotel in India. And the young man, played by Dev Patel, keeps saying, everything is all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end, which I absolutely love that. It's process. So focus, forgiveness. Third table leg, clarity, clarity, clarity. When you master the top 2, clarity. And then the third one just falls right into the fourth one. Bam. Once you have clarity, the fourth table leg is commitment. It's commitment to holding that vision. It's commitment to keeping that thing framed. It's commitment to having that thing, to believing that you have it in your mind's eye. It's somewhere in the world, and you will have it in reality, in real time, in a material way. I'm very excited for myself and for you, because I'm not telling you anything that I didn't have to work on myself and master myself. I am very focused. I am extremely forgiving and hopefully forgiven. The lovely lady that I am now not only at peace with, but as I say, when she said, "It's okay, sweetheart," was one of the nicest sweethearts I ever heard. I feel good when I think about her. After 20 plus years of feeling weird and awkward, and just that feeling, I feel good. There's an absolute happy ending to that story. I'm gaining clarity in what it is I want. And not just because of my age and not because I'm closer to the finish line than the starting gun, but because it's time for me to get clear. It's time for me to stop sort of spinning my wheels. And the commitment to my own self-actualization and my own excellence and my own next level living is absolutely just happening. I am committed to myself. I am committed to my well-being. I am committed to making things happen. I am committed to believing and having faith that what I focus on can and will happen with certainty. As the French say, inévitable. So that is the second segment. Think about these things for yourself, especially the forgiveness component. If you get nothing else from this show, please give yourself the opportunity to ponder what your life would be like if you just forgave everything that happened before this moment. Just declare emotional bankruptcy and move forward. Thank you for listening. I hope you very much enjoyed this segment of the Monique Marvez Show entitled, I Love It. I love it when a plan comes together. This is the third segment of I Love It When a Plan Comes Together, my second show of 2020. The first was Hindsight is So 2020. Check it out if you haven't yet. And here we go. Third segment. I'm going to tell you where the bodies are buried, where my patterns and my mistakes were. And it was interesting because I journal and I write and I paint pictures and et cetera, et cetera. So this piece of paper I've had since the summer of 17. And this piece of paper I was sitting preparing to go on stage. And I realized that I just didn't want to do jokes. I was at the Faena Hotel in Miami, Faena. If you're ever on what we call Mid Beach on Collins Avenue, please check it out. Even if you just go to see the hotel, it's a giant work of art. It's amazing. And the theater was designed by Baz Luhrmann. And something about the red velvet and the chandeliers, I knew in an instant that I wanted to elevate my performance to another level than just funny. So I wrote this list, and I wrote material to make great things happen at the top. And I realized that I wanted to talk about topics that moved me. I'm excited about. Number one, I'm excited about. What am I excited about? Excitement's a great way to start a show. Number two, I miss. And in parentheses, what really matters? What do you miss? What is gone? What has shaped you? Number three, I realize. That was going to be all about communications and contacts. What do I realize? Think of the word realize and realization. Number four, time has taught me. Now think of these headers in your own life. I'm excited about, I miss, what really matters, I realize, communications and contact. 4, time has taught me. 5, what I know to be true. What do you know to be true about yourself, your life, your experience, your loved ones, your skill sets? What do you know to be true about your experience? Number 6, my philosophy on, and number 7, about relationships. What is my philosophy and how is that actually manifested in reality? Well, those two, 6 and 7, ended up being the whole thing. And then just a little something to think about, why culture, family, friends still shape you. Familiar, meaning the truest sense of the word familiar is that it comes from family. What you know, what you knew that predates speech, the house you grew up in, the food you ate, the experiences you had. Do your parents stay together lovingly? Did they stay together obligingly but not lovingly? Did they not stay together at all? Did they divorce well? What is a good divorce versus a very bad divorce, which we've all seen that. And what is familiar versus outsiders, the unknown? What shaped you that came from without your comfort zone, that came from the other side of the fence, that came from a whole different experience? And after I wrote these things, I realized that in a way, we're all outsiders. Think about how you feel about the world, your experience, and your place in it. It always seems to me, and when I talk to other people, they confirm it, that there's some party going on over there that I'm not a part of. And I don't mean that in a negative anymore, because oddly enough, I realized that whatever I was outside of is fine. I didn't actually belong there. But it's taken me a long time to get to a point where I can look at experiences, whether it's relationships, workplace environments, the jobs I had that I thought I was good at, that I knew on some level I wasn't part of the team, the clique, the whatever was the party. Now, I want to express this in a more specific way. For years, now I quit my day job in the summer of 93. So this summer will be 27 years since I quit my day job. So let's put a pin in that. It's been 30. I was 29 going on 30 when I stopped being part of, a workplace environment. But let's go back to my 20s, okay? In my 20s, I was a salesperson. I worked predominantly retail. I stepped out of retail and went into professional liability. My last day job was that I sold medical malpractice insurance to doctors. Look at this face. Does that look like a good job for me? No. But the reason why I did it was because I figured if I'm good at selling lipstick, what's the biggest thing I can sell without a license or not on a car lot? I didn't want to sell real estate. I didn't want to sell cars. Turned out it was professional liability. I sold medical malpractice insurance to doctors. And by the way, in 1988, a neurosurgeon, Dr. Gary Lustgarten of Miami, Florida, was my biggest client. A neurosurgeon paid $126,000 a year. That's $2,500 a week, $10,000 a month and change to practice neurosurgery. Why is that? Because there's no middle ground. A neurosurgeon saves you or you die. And even if you were going to die anyway because you were in a motorcycle accident, it just so happens that frequently families don't want to hear that and a lawsuit happens. Why am I telling you this? Because I was good at my job, even though I didn't enjoy my job. I was very good at it. Are you good at your job, but it's not your heart's desire? Do you go home in your car thinking, I hate this. I really don't want to do this? Because if you do that, at some point, you will get fired or the company will get sold or your accounts will dry up because you cannot put your mental energy in a direction and expect your physical body at some point not to follow that direction. Even if you think you're hiding it from the kids, you're only saying it in your car where no one can hear you. Think about the direction you send your thoughts. Because interestingly enough, I've been fired. I jokingly say in my act that I'm a comedian because what got me smacked, divorced, and fired is finally paying my rent. But I can honestly tell you that although at the time my ego was hurt, whether I was dumped, divorced, served with papers, fired, a format flipped, whatever happened, about 10 years ago, I was doing radio in San Diego, a show called Monique and the Man. And I was making a very nice amount of money. I was doing morning drives. I had a wonderful partner. But things were amiss. I wasn't held in the bosom of the radio station community. And interestingly enough, although I was making a lot of money and my partner was a nice fellow and things appeared to be right on the surface, I wasn't happy. I'm not a DJ. I'm a comedian. I'm a writer-performer. I'm a whatever this is that we're doing together. And when I got non-renewed, nobody gets fired, and when you're air talent, they just don't renew your contract. It's a much more pleasant experience. But technically, when I got non-renewed, it hurt my ego. But I knew that it was time, that I had to leave that place. And I went home, and my sorrowful heart, I said, why did this happen? I thought I was doing good. I thought I had good ratings. And the voice said to me, Monique, is this where you envisioned yourself living? Was this it for you? Is this what you wanted to do? No. And the voice said, then keep walking. Keep walking towards where you want to go. And it brought me an enormous amount of solace and comfort. And I'm going to ask you to use that for yourself. If somebody breaks up with you, ask yourself, was this really the end-all, be-all relationship? I'm not saying you didn't love them. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying it doesn't super suck. But at the end of the day, was that how you pictured living the rest of your life? Or, to be honest, were they making you a little crazy? Did they have a habit you just couldn't get over? Was there something? Was there, a burr in your saddle blanket? Be honest with yourself. This isn't about you and me. This is about you and your higher power or God or the universe or whatever you answer to, even if it is just you. And if the answer is, well, you know that the answer is no. Because a yes is a yes is a yes is a yes is a yes. And everything that isn't a yes is a no. FYI, I've been to Japan, and I had heard that there is no word for no in Japanese because Japanese people are incredibly polite and hate to say no. So instead of no, they say not likely, which is the equivalent of no. But I understand that philosophy because, quite frankly, anything that isn't an enthusiastic yes is a no. Be honest with yourself. And in my life, sitting here before you, I can, with all my heart, tell you, I am so grateful that I got those no's, even though I didn't want them at the time. I am so grateful that my first husband found Melissa Ives more attractive than me, and for whatever reasons. And I jokingly say that in my stand-up, and I mention her by name because I can, because it really happened, and that's her real name. And I'm thankful to her. I'm grateful. I might still be married to somebody who had a wandering eye and feet that followed. That's not the point. Obviously, so much has happened since then. So much forgiveness and joy, and I've since been in touch with my ex-brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and we exchanged pictures, and again, something wasn't right, and it got righted. But I'm using it as an example. I wouldn't be sitting here before you if it weren't for that experience. There's so many experiences like that in my life. Every failed relationship. I told my girlfriend, Debs, I said, Debs, we were talking about things that went wrong. I said, no, everything went perfectly because we're good people. We have abandonment issues. We never want to give up on something because in our heart of hearts, we never want anyone to give up on us. That's what it is when you have that thing where you hang on to people. Think about your own abandonment issues or your own fear of people walking away from you. And then think about how many times you don't walk away from things that you probably should. It's really a mirror image situation. And I tell her, thank goodness they weren't, I just pick an arbitrary number. Again, I love the number 7. I go, thank goodness, Chuck Jones wasn't 7% nicer to you, or you might still be stuck there. Be grateful that it wasn't 7% better, or you might not have moved on. I promise you that if you really think about the places that you got kicked out of or told not to come back to, you really didn't want to be there. You're not an outsider. None of us are outsiders. Everyone feels like an outsider, but you know what? If you're not in that party, you don't belong in that party. You really don't want to be in that party. I recently read on Instagram, and I love how Instagram's become just like, all these little positivities framed in pretty fonts, but I love it. It's a time of words because words do matter. And somebody said your vibe creates your tribe. I love that. I don't feel like I'm outside of anything because I feel like I'm inside of me. I'm inside my own skin. I'm exceptionally comfortable. Years ago, I wrote a sentence that I realized was what my whole life hinged on. I wish I had that journal so I could flip it and show you, but I'll show you with my hands. And I wrote, don't ever leave me alone. Don't ever, middle finger, leave me alone. Now, if you put a piece of paper on the front, it was, don't ever leave. If you put a piece of paper over here, it's leave me alone. And I realized that the story of my life hinged on those 5 words and which ones were covered. Because it was all about leaving. It was all about abandonment. It was all about betrayal. It was all about my dad leaving when I was a child. And me being left with my mom, who I now have an amazing relationship with. But at the time, I felt like she was the bad babysitter. She didn't get me. And there were so many patterns that came into play. So many destructive habits, so many doubts, so many moments of despair that hinged on those 5 words. Don't ever leave. Leave me alone. I want you to think about your core, your sentence, what your life has hinged on. And I want you to realize that as soon as you can tell yourself a better story, that my story isn't about leaving, and it isn't about keeping people right where I think that I need them to be, but blessing them and allowing them to stand where they need to be. I have an amazing life. Memorize this. This is the happiest face. Is it the youngest face? No. Is it the prettiest face? No. Is it a perfect face? No. It's my face in pure joy, focused on what I want to do next, in complete clarity, commitment, forgiveness, and focus. I want that very much for you. I want you to look at your patterns. I want you to get comfortable within yourself enough to step out of them. And I want you to know that there is a perfect place for you to be. That once you completely inhabit yourself with joy and purpose, you will attract the map, the people, the place, the party. I like rewatching things on HBO because it is the gold standard. We've gone full circle. And I recently rewatched Boardwalk Empire. And there's a quote that's a leitmotif throughout the show, which is that man's problems all stem from his inability to be alone in a room with himself. That's actually very, very true. How do you feel when you're alone, without TV, without your phone, without chocolate, without shopping, without a lover, without weed, just keep going. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel wonderful alone in a room with myself. I do. But I'm so grateful that that is an option and not what I do every day. And that I have the option to be alone in a room with you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you very much enjoyed and felt the intention that I put into this show. I love it when a plan comes together because I really do. And my plan is coming together. And I want the same for you. Thank you.